This summer, I read a wonderful story about a mom named Tara who rediscovered the joy of wearing goggles in the pool. She was swimming with her sons and she could see underwater, and she said it was the most fun she'd had in 20 years in the pool. And she asked a very good question. When do we stop wearing goggles? Is it because we grow up? What is that? And it intrigued me, as did a fantastic, fabulous article I read in Seattle Refined by Lisette Walter McKinley, and she's our special guest today. Lisette, welcome to Spirit 105.3. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I absolutely loved what you wrote about how you gradually fell in love with riding on a bicycle again. How did that happen?
Yeah, so about 12 years ago, my husband and I started visiting Long Beach, Washington. We stayed at this hotel where they had these free beach cruisers for their guests to use. And at that point, I probably hadn't been on a bike in a good 20 years. But the path was wide and well paved, and it skirted along this beach. And we just would always ride on those bikes when we stayed there. Fast forward to the pandemic, and my husband traded in his bus pass for a bicycle. And my son had reached the age where he finally was old enough to get his first mountain bike. And then my husband's birthday came, and he got a bike trailer for her daughter. And then it turned into this thing where in the evenings, my husband would take our kids on a ride, and I would make dinner or just enjoy having a quiet house.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel left out. I kind of liked it. I had, I couldn't go. Like, I didn't have a bike. And it wasn't really something that we ever talked about. And then one day, this huge box appeared at our door. And my husband called, and he said, "Guess what? I bought you a bike." And I was kind of like, oh, okay. It was a total surprise. And at that point, I kind of ran out of excuses.
Yeah.
Before I knew it, I was kind of indoctrinated into this family biker brigade. I was a little nervous because we live in West Seattle and there's a ton of hills. And, I hadn't been on a bike in a long time, and I had never really been on a bike in a city situation. And so I would take these little bike rides around our neighborhood. And I got my bike in October, so it wasn't like I was riding the bike, in the summer.
Sure.
It was dark and it was cold, and I'd just kind of go on these little bike rides. And they felt really invigorating because at the time I had two little kids, and no one could get anything from me when I was on that bike. It was just me and the bike. The cold, crisp days of fall came upon us, and I'd be thinking about it all day long. I'd be thinking, I can't wait to go on a bike ride. And there's actually been a lot of studies that have been published about the benefits of adults taking up hobbies and how it reduces stress. And it was just kind of this reset that I craved at the end of each day. And, I was alone, and it was just this kind of fun time.
Yeah, you kind of traded one freedom for another. The freedom of being in the house by yourself for the freedom of being on the back of a bike and feeling like a kid again. I mean, I'm guessing that's how you felt.
Right, exactly. Because aside from the beach, those were my core memories of being a child. Were wearing a neon orange sweatshirt and biking with I'm a kid of the 80s, so all about the fluorescent and, biking with my siblings. And so, yeah, it was this thing that just sort of was a gift that was given to me by my husband. And I think he realized this is something that I needed, and I hadn't even given it any thought.
I love it. Now, have you fallen off, scraped your knee, any dramatic incidents?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you should ask. One time I was mad about something, and I was I'm going to go on a bike ride. And then I didn't get far from my house, and I literally don't know what happened. And I went careening off the front of it. And I thought whoa, don't hop on a bike when you're mad.
All right, so what other surprises did you discover when you started riding a bike again?
Yeah, I think of myself as someone who's in pretty good shape, but there's a big difference between biking in shape, running in shape, hiking in shape, swimming in shape. They all look very different.
Yeah.
And I had a really, really sore butt. I could not go for, my husband had been biking, at this point for a couple of years, every single day. And I just had to be can we stop? And, my butt was going to sleep just because I wasn't used to being on a bike. Another thing is, as I've gotten older, I have found that variety is really what my body craves. It's nice to do all those different kinds of in shape, not just always do the one thing.
Yeah, I'm such a fan of your story. And I'm wondering, mentally how you feel besides the sore butt, which I can totally relate to. I've done exercise bike classes and things like that. So, does it give you a fresh mental perspective?
Yeah, when I'm biking, I feel like all my senses are engaged from the bumping of the road. We live in West Seattle, so the fresh salt air, the breathtaking scenery. We have this path that we go on where we pass multiple parks and beaches. And I often just liken biking to life, where it's like these hard-fought ups, which are all these hills in West Seattle. And then you get to the top and you get to relish the view. And then you have all these hills going down. And, biking is just freeing. You can't worry too much about anything else. Well, at least where I am in my biking journey, like I'm concentrating on getting safely from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Like there's potholes, there's other cars, there's my son that like zips in and out in front of me. And so I can't really think about anything else like when I'm on a bike, which is a very freeing feeling because I think as adults, we're constantly like mulling things over and worrying about things.
Yes. Oh, I can so relate to that. So, Lisette, have your neighbors commented, like when they see you all out, your little family biker gang, do they say anything?
Yeah, I think a lot of them are kind of jealous, where they're like, oh, like, I wish I could do that, or I wish we had bikes. And I always think like, well, you can. The interesting thing is this has translated into lots of firsts for our family. So since the pandemic, we as a family have taken up Nordic skiing.
Wow.
Which is awesome. We have also taken up stand-up paddling. And so we have these activities. Like we're finally at this point where our kids are old enough to do these things.
Yeah.
2 of our children are 5 years apart, and sometimes it can be challenging finding activities that they both enjoy. Biking is one of them. Nordic skiing is one of them. And stand-up paddling is one of them. And it's just kind of been this reclaiming life. Like often as parents, we tell our kids, like, try this sport, do this, go to this camp, meet these people, do this. But as adults, we're just kind of scared, right? And we're in our own heads of what we're good at. Especially if we've been in long-term relationships, we go, oh, well, that person's athletic, that person's funny, that person's smart. And, we tell ourselves we're only these certain things, but it doesn't have to be that way. Like we can be the athletic ones. Yeah. We can, we both can be the athletic ones, and being athletic can look like different things. It doesn't have to be 20-mile bike rides. It can be, an 8-mile bike ride. So yeah, it has turned into something bigger where it's kind of just this celebration of life where we're just going to say yes. We're just going to say yes to things. And unless there's a really good reason to say no, like safety or something like that,
sure,
then we as a family are going to try it and try it together. And I think that's so important just for our children to see, like, we just went on this rafting trip down the Salmon River in Idaho, and none of us have ever been rafting. And I thought it was so important for my kids to see, like, not only is this person my mom, but this person's brave enough to try something new with me. And at the end, like we had, it wasn't just a vacation. We were creating these core memories that bind us as a family of we can all face our fears, do something a little scary, come out the other end stronger. And then that's something that we can tap into when life gets hard is, I was able to try skiing. I was able to go on that bike ride. I was able to go on that hike. Like we can do hard things, translates back into life.
Absolutely. And it has a generational impact because you're teaching your kids to do hard things. And one day they could be teaching their kids to do hard things. So that's beautiful to think about.
Right. And I hate the idea that children have the corner marketed on fun.
Right.
Like we as adults deserve to have as much fun.
Lisette from Seattle Refined, taking fun back. I absolutely love talking with you. Don't be a stranger. I'll be following your work, but I'd love to have you back to talk about something else.
Yeah, thank you so much.